Okay, hello and welcome to our presentation on frequency tables and histograms. This should not take too long, but we are going to make this relevant to real life because we are going to, because I'm a history teacher also, make a connection to history topics. But first we're talking about what is a frequency table? Well, describe its parts. Well, you see there, you have your score. And your score shows you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now sometimes you'll see these scores, this thing here, in a range. So you might have, for instance, instead of just being 1, 2, 3, you might see these together grouped to look like 1 through 3. So instead of having the tally mark and the frequency for 1 is 1, frequency for 2 is 1, frequency for 3 is 3, you'd have, for 1 through 3, you'd have a total frequency of 5. Okay. Now another thing that you'll see to some frequency tables is a total of the frequency. So over here, hold on, let me erase something. Over here you'd have a total frequency, we'll call it TF, a cumulative total. You'd have 1 there, and then the next one, since 1 is for 1, and then there's 1 for 2, you'd have a cumulative total of 2, and then you'd have 3 for 3, so the cumulative total would be up to 5, and since there's 1, 4, then it would be 6, and there's 4, 5, so that would be up to 10, and then 5 6s, so it would be 15, and you get the idea. Now, this frequency table obviously doesn't have that, but some of them do. How would the data here be generated? Well, you're doing something and you're counting it. Perhaps you have numbers in a bag or something and you're drawing them out to see how many times you draw the numbers 1 through 10. Now, how would we make a histogram from this data? Well, one thing that you would do would be to have a graph of some sort. We'd have a line like this, and then you'd have a line like this, and along this side there, you'd have your, basically, your frequency. And along here, you'd have your numbers. So for instance, if we had a range in this first column of 1 to 3, we'd have to have a line here for number 1, then for 2, then for 3, then for 4, then for 5. And so our total for 1 through 3 would be 5. So we'd have a bar in our histogram that would be 5. So it looks similar to that. Okay, let's move on. Here we have an actual population table that's kind of like a frequency table. Kind of it is, and kind of it's not exactly, but it's a historical representation. And you can see that the population goes from 1850 in Chicago when it was 43,385 all the way up to 1920 when it was over 3 million. So again, you'd be looking for exactly where would we make the bars for each of these years. So we have to estimate when the numbers are really low. For instance, 1850 only 43,000. So we'd have to kind of, again, estimate. If this is 1 million, then this is going to be about 500,000, somewhere around there. And there'd be 5 different lines, sections. So your bar for 1850 would only be that much, if that much. However, the bar for 1880, it's all the way up in just that 30 years to 607,000. So your bar there for 1880 would be somewhere a little bit over that dot right there, which is 500,000. So there's your 1880 one. Now for 1890, it's over 1 million. So now you're going up to a little over 1 million, like that. For 1900, it's almost 2 million. So you see how this is allowing us to make a graphical representation of this data. It's easy to see it and compare it. 1910 is 2,400,000. So about that. Again, this is estimation, very rough tool. And then 3 million, or 1920, it's over 3 million. So like that. So this is that histogram graphic representation of this data. Okay. And you could do the same thing here. Now, we're not going to make this one. We're just going to talk about, okay, if we were going to make a histogram out of this data, how would we do it? Well, over here would have to be the frequency, the number, as in the total immigrated. I know it's not the easiest thing to see, but we can work with this. Actually, let's go ahead and turn it into the actual slideshow. Yeah, now it's easier to read. So, this first one here would be Asia. 8 million immigrated between 1820 and 1920. So if you were going to do this in order, let's see here, we can split this up, and the part we can see, we'll call the bottom here 0, and then this next one would be, oh come on, 1 million. 2 million. 3 million. 4 million. 5 million. I know those divisions might not be exact. 6 million. 7 million. 8 million. 9 million. We could keep going if we needed to. But let's say that right down here, the first line would be Asia, and Asia is over 8 million. So our histogram bar for Asia would be about that much. And if the next part was Germany, we'd go 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. It's 5,500,000. So we're talking an estimate about that much. So over here would be the frequency, the number of people in this case. And this would be each individual thing. Instead of a range of numbers of some sort, it would be the countries. Okay. Here you see a much fancier version of something like this. Immigration United States 1820-2010. And you can see how it has these intervals, these ranges of the dates. You start from 1820 to 1830, and you go all the way up to 2001 to 2010. And you see over here is the frequency where it goes from 0 all the way up to 14 million. And you can see how a histogram is very valuable for comparing data. Okay. Now this is in part of the worksheet that you're going to be working with. What are the important features of a frequency table? Well, it's the range, in this case, number of hours. In previous cases, it was country name. In this case, it was total population. Okay. So number of hours, 0 to 3, 4 to 7, 8 to 11, 12 to 15. Frequency, 9, means the number of hours student exercised in 1 week. 9 students exercised between 0 and 3 hours. So the cumulative frequency was 9. And this means that 4 students exercised between 4 and 7 hours, cumulative frequency being 13. And this means 7 students exercised between 8 and 11 hours a week, cumulative frequency of 20, then 2 exercise between 12 and 15 hours a week. They're probably track athletes or something like that. And the cumulative frequency was up to 22. The most important things that you're going to need to make a frequency table would be the number, in this one, number of hours and frequency. In the examples we've seen so far, you don't graph the actual cumulative frequency. So now this one is a little bit of problem solving. Fill in the missing information, and some of this is pulled from the worksheet you'll be working on. Fill in the missing information for this frequency table and then answer the questions. Okay. Age of biking club members. 10 to 12 was 2, cumulative frequency of 2. Ages 13 to 15 was 7, so the cumulative frequency would be 2 plus 7 for a total of 9. And if 16 to 18 was a age range, was a frequency of 3, that would give us a cumulative frequency of 12. Now we have to go back the other way. For 19 to 21, we aren't given the frequency, but we're given the cumulative frequency, which goes up 3, so obviously that makes the frequency for 19 to 21 3. And then quite simply, 22 to 24, if the cumulative frequency is already up to 15, and we add in 9, that's going to make it 24. So you'll be able to answer those questions when you do this for your homework. And what is a histogram? I'm pausing to let you think of that on your own as you're watching the video. Graphical, as in you can see a picture, a representation of data. That's one way you could define it. And here's something else you'll see in your worksheet. Number of raisins in a small box. Never forget to read the title of any kind of graph you're looking at. Number of raisins in a small box. You see the frequency goes from 0 to 7. Before you even start reading the data, you should look at these labels and titles. And the number of raisins is what you're graphing along the horizontal axis, the x-axis. Okay. So how many boxes of raisins were checked? You're looking for the cumulative frequency. So for 25 to 29, you have 5. And for 30 to 34, you have 5. And for 35 to 39, you have 6. And for 40 to 44, you have 3. So once again, how many boxes of raisins were checked? Well, it would be 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 3. How many boxes had 39 raisins or less? Well, we wouldn't count this because that's more than 39. But everything from here over would represent 39 or less. So you'd add 6 plus 5 plus 5. And the median number of raisins in a box. Median as in the data point that is exactly in the middle once you put them in order from least to greatest. So you'd have to start with 3 to 5 to 5 to 6. Remember, when you're looking for a median of an even number of data points, you've got to take the mean of the two in the middle. Okay. Median being a number that's exactly in the middle. So if you took 3, then 5, then another 5, then a 6, this is going to be easy. The two that are in the middle are 5 and 5. So if you do the mean of those, 5 plus 5 is 10, divided by 2 would, of course, equal 5. So your median is 5. True or false? Most of the boxes have between 35 and 39 raisins. Think closely. Don't be tricked into that. I'm not going to tell you the answer, but think closely on what that answer would be. Turn the frequency distribution, the number of hours students exercise in week 1, into a histogram in the space to the right. Now, we're not going to do that. But if you're turning this into a histogram, you would of course have to have your graph part, and over here would be your frequency between 0 and 15, so you'd start at 0 and work your way all the way up to 15. But the hours are split up into ranges, so the first one would be 0 to 3, then 4 to 7, then 8 to 11, then 12 to 15. And so for 0 to 3 hours, the frequency is 9. And I'm going to estimate here, of course. So for this one, this is 15. That would make halfway 7.5. So I'm thinking 9 is somewhere. Come on, that's not right. Somewhere around there. And for 4 to 7, it's 4. So if this is 15 and this is 7.5, 4 is going to be somewhere down around there. Then you get the idea of how you would make a frequency table. So here we are, pretty much done. Your frequency table document is indeed loaded into the Blackboard class, where you have found some of the other documents. It's inside the folder that you know where it is. Now I'm going to stop teaching now, but I'm going to let this video run a few more minutes so that we can try to make sure that all of your audio is in. Thank you for watching.